Welcome to Across the Globe. Today we will learn about creating and handling basic forms. Forms play a crucial role in collecting user input on web applications. Flask offers convenient features to manage forms efficiently. The main elements for form handling in Flask are the WTForms library for form creation and validation, and the request object for accessing form data. For instance, with WTForms, you can define a form class specifying fields and validation rules, making it easier to process user input securely. The request object then allows you to retrieve data submitted through the form, enabling you to process and respond to user interactions effectively. By understanding and utilizing these components effectively, developers can streamline form handling in Flask applications with precision and reliability. WTForms is a Python library designed for creating forms in Flask web applications. It is integrated with Flask through the Flask-WTF extension. To construct a form in Flask using WTForms, you must define a class that inherits from Flask-WTF.FlaskForm. Within this class, you can declare form fields using various field types provided by WTForms. For instance, suppose you need to create a form to capture user information such as their name. You can define a form class named myForm, which contains a string field named name. This specific field will render an input element for users to input their name on the form. By instantiating an object of this form class in your Flask application, you can display a form with the designated fields on your web page efficiently. By following this standardized procedure and utilizing the strengths of WTForms in conjunction with Flask-WTF, you can streamline the form creation process in Flask applications, ensuring a cohesive and efficient user input mechanism on your website. Upon creating a form and rendering it using Jinja 2 syntax in a template, the user-triggered form submission sends data to the server via a request. In Flask, this form data can be accessed through the request.form object. For instance, in the provided code snippet, when a user submits the form, the data entered in the name field is accessed using request.formName, allowing the server to retrieve and process the submitted name. This data can then be utilized within the server-side logic for tasks such as generating responses or further processing based on the form input. By leveraging Flask's request handling capabilities, developers can seamlessly interact with form data submitted by users, facilitating dynamic and interactive web application functionality. A Flask application can incorporate a form to gather user input. The collected data can then be utilized within the application. A basic Flask application with form functionality can be set up using Python. Initially, the necessary Flask and form-related modules are imported. The form is defined within a class, such as myForm, containing input fields like string field. Upon defining the form and its fields, the back-end logic involves creating a route, typically the root route / that processes the form input data. The route function, such as index, instantiates an instance of the form. Subsequently, it validates if the form has been submitted and, if so, retrieves the input data for further processing. For instance, the input data could be displayed back to the user within the application. By running the Flask application, typically through app.run, the form will be rendered on the specified route. Users can input their data, which is then handled by the route function. This enables dynamic interaction with users, where information can be submitted and processed accordingly. In this specific example, upon submitting a name via the form, the application will greet the user with a "Hello" name. Therefore, this Flask application demonstrates a simple but effective way to collect user input and provide personalized responses based on the input received. Creating a basic form is like building a car from scratch using different components like wheels, engine, and chassis. Handling a basic form is like driving the car smoothly on the road, making sure to follow traffic rules and avoid accidents. In a program, creating a basic form involves designing the user interface with input fields, labels, and buttons. Handling a basic form in a program involves processing user input, validating data, and performing necessary actions based on the input. Hey Code Conquerors, ready to level up? With TechLearn ATG, showcase your skills with official course certificates. Just visit our site and start. Need that extra boost? Get tailored learning, 24/7 support, and expert guidance. coding smarter, growing faster, and making learning fun. Go to our website across the globe, www.atg.world. The Flask application starts by defining the basic form route, which supports both GET and POST methods. Upon receiving a POST request, the form data is extracted, which consists of the submitted username and password. To maintain data integrity, the input is validated to ensure that both fields are filled. If any of the fields are empty, an error message is rendered, prompting the user to provide all the necessary information. Following validation, the code checks the submitted credentials for authentication purposes. For instance, if the username is admin and the password is password, a success message indicating a successful login attempt is displayed. Otherwise, an error message is returned to notify the user of invalid credentials. To view the form, the Flask application renders the form.html template. This template contains the form structure and elements needed for user input and message display. When the application runs and debug mode is enabled, it listens for incoming requests. To run the Flask application, ensure Flask is installed by executing pip install Flask before commencing. This code snippet showcases a practical implementation of handling form data in a web application, enabling user interaction, validation, and authentication processes. Creating and handling basic forms can have various real-world applications, particularly in the industrial sector. Two examples where this concept is applied are 1. Manufacturing quality control. In a manufacturing plant, operators often need to record measurements and observations during the production process. Basic forms can be used to create digital data entry interfaces where operators can enter crucial data such as dimensions, weights, temperatures, and other quality control parameters. The forms can include validation checks to ensure that the entered data falls within acceptable ranges. This data can then be used for process monitoring, quality assurance, and compliance purposes. 2. Employee time tracking. Many companies require employees to log their working hours, project details, and tasks performed. Basic forms can be utilized to create a user-friendly interface for employees to input this information. The forms can include drop-downs for project selection, date pickers for logging hours worked per day, and text fields for task descriptions. The form data can be validated to ensure completeness and accuracy before being submitted to the company's time tracking system. This helps in tracking employee productivity, project progress, and payroll calculations efficiently. By incorporating basic forms in these industrial applications, businesses can streamline data collection, improve accuracy, and enhance decision-making processes. Remember, effective form creation and handling are key components of optimizing operational efficiency across industries. Keep learning, stay curious, and I'll catch you in the next video.